Well, Quat said reflectively, it's having everything you wanted when you were a kid. If you can have everything at 50 that you wanted when you were 15, you're happy. Now, when I was 15, and Quat went on and on, describing the symbols, ambitions, and frustrations of his boyhood, which he was now satisfying until Baker came out of the operating theater. Finished? Gisbella asked eagerly. Finished. After I put him under, I was able to work faster. They're bandaging his face now. He'll be out in a few minutes. Weak? Naturally. How long before the bandages come off? 6 or 7 days. His face will be clean? I thought you weren't interested in his face, dear. It ought to be clean. I don't think I miss a spot of pigment. You may admire my skill, Gisbella. Also my sagacity. And going to back Foyle's salvage trip. What? What? Quat laughed. You taking 1,000-to-1 gamble, Baker? I thought you were smart. I am. The pain was too much for him, and he talked under the anesthesia. There's 20 million in platinum bullion on board the Nomad. 20 million? Sam Quat's face darkened, and he turned on Gisbella. But she was furious, too. Don't look at me, Sam. I didn't know. He held out on me, too. Swore he never knew why Dagenham was hounding him. It was Dagenham who told him, Baker said. He let that slip, too. I'll kill him, Gisbella said. I'll tear him apart with my own 2 hands, and you won't find anything inside his carcass but black rot. He'll be a curio for your zoo, Baker. I wish to God I'd let you have him. The door of the operating theater opened, and 2 orderlies wheeled out a trolley on which Foyle lay, twitching slightly. His entire head was one white glob of bandage. Is he conscious? Quat asked Baker. I'll handle this, Gisbella burst out. I'll talk to the son of a... Foyle! Foyle answered faintly through the mask of bandage. As Gisbella drew a furious breath for her onslaught, one wall of the hospital disappeared, and there was a clap of thunder that knocked them off their feet. The entire building rocked from repeated explosions, and through the gaps in the walls, uniformed men began jaunting in from the streets outside, like rooks swooping into the gut of a battlefield. Raid! Baker shouted. Raid! Christ Jesus! Quat shook. The uniformed men were swarming all over the building, shouting, Foyle! 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 Baker disappeared with a pop. The attendants jaunted too, deserting the trolley on which Foyle waved his arms and legs feebly, making faint sounds. It's a goddamn raid, Quat shook Gisbella. Go, girl, go! We can't leave Foyle, Gisbella cried. Wake up, girl, go! We can't run out on him. Gisbella seized the trolley and ran it down the corridor. Quat pounded alongside her. The roaring in the hospital grew louder. Foyle! 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 Leave him, for God's sake, Quat urged. Let them have him. No! It's a Lobo for us, girl, if they get us. We can't run out on him. They skidded around a corner into a shrieking mob of post-operative patients, birdmen with fluttering wings, mermaids dragging themselves along the floor like seals, hermaphrodites, giants, pygmies, 2-headed twins, centaurs, and a mewling sphinx. They clawed at Gisbella and Quat in terror. Get him off the trolley, Gisbella yelled. Quat yanked Foyle off the trolley. Foyle came to his feet and sagged. Gisbella took his arm, and between them, Sam and Giz hauled him through a door into a ward filled with Baker's temporal freaks, subjects with accelerated time sense, darting about the ward with the lightning rapidity of hummingbirds and emitting piercing bat-like squeals. Jaunt him out, Sam. After the way he tried to cross you and scalp us? We can't turn out on him, Sam. You ought to know that by now. Jaunt him out. Caster's place. Gisbella helped Quat haul Foyle to his shoulder. The temporal freaks seemed to fill the ward with shrieking streaks. The ward doors burst open. A dozen bolts from pneumatic guns whined through the ward, dropping the temporal patients in their gyrations. Quat was slammed back against the wall, dropping Foyle. A black and blue bruise appeared on his temple. Get the hell out of here, Quat roared. I'm done. Sam! I'm done. Can't jaunt. Go, girl. Trying to shake off the concussion that prevented him from jaunting, Quat straightened and charged forward, meeting the uniformed men who poured into the ward. Gisbella took Foyle's arm and dragged him out the back of the ward, through a pantry, a clinic, a laundry supply, and down flights of ancient stairs that buckled and threw up clouds of termite dust. They came into a victual cellar. Baker's zoo had broken out of their cells in the chaos and were raiding the cellar like bees gluttoning themselves with honey in an attack hive. A Cyclops girl was cramming her mouth with handfuls of butter scooped from a tub. Her single eye above the ridge of her nose leered at them. Gisbella dragged Foyle through the victual cellar, found a bolted wooden door, and kicked it open. They stumbled down a flight of crumbling steps and found themselves in what had once been a coal cellar. The concussions and roarings overhead sounded deeper and hollow. A chute slot on one side of the cellar was barred with an iron door held by iron clamps. Gisbella placed Foyle's hands on the clamps. Together they opened them and climbed out of the cellar through the coal chute. They were outside the freak factory, huddled against the rear wall. Before them were the Trenton rocket pits, and as they gasped for breath, Giz saw a freighter come sliding down an anti-grav beam into a waiting pit. Its portholes blazed, and its recognition signals blinked like a lurid neon sign, illuminating the back wall of the hospital. A figure leaped from the roof of the hospital. It was Sam Quat, attempting a desperate flight. He sailed out into space, arms and legs flailing, trying to reach the upthrusting anti-grav beam of the nearest pit, which might catch him in mid-flight and cushion his fall. His aim was perfect. 70 feet above ground, he dropped squarely into the shaft of the beam. It was not an operation. He fell and smashed on the edge of the pit. Gisbella sobbed. Still automatically retaining her grip on Foyle's arm, she ran across the seamed concrete to Sam Quat's body. There she let go of Foyle and touched Quat's head tenderly. Her fingers were stained with blood. Foyle tore at the bandage before his eyes, working eye holes through the gauze. He muttered to himself, listening to Gisbella weep and hearing the shouts behind him from Baker's factory. His hands fumbled at Quat's body. Then he arose and tried to pull Gisbella up. "Gotta go," he croaked. "Got to get out. They've seen us." Gisbella never moved. Foyle mustered all his strength and pulled her upright. "Times Square," he muttered. "Jaunt, Giz!" Uniformed figures appeared around them. Foyle shook Gisbella's arm and jaunted to Times Square, where masses of jaunters on the gigantic stage stared in amazement at the huge man with the white bandaged globe for a head. The stage was the size of 2 football fields. Foyle stared around dimly through the bandages. There was no sign of Gisbella, but she might be anywhere. He lifted his voice to a shout. "Montauk! Giz! Montauk! The folly stage!" Foyle jaunted with a last thrust of energy and a prayer. An icy nor'easter was blowing in from Block Island and sweeping brittle ice crystals across the stage on the site of a medieval ruin known as Fisher's Folly. There was another figure on the stage. Foyle tottered to it through the wind and the snow. It was Gisbella, looking frozen and lost. "Thank God," Foyle muttered. "Thank God. Where does Sam keep his weekender?" He took Gisbella's elbow. "Where does Sam keep his weekender?" "Sam's dead." "Where does he keep that Saturn weekender?" "He's retired, Sam. Sam is. He's not scared anymore." "Where's the ship, Giz?" "In the yards down at the lighthouse." "Come on." "Where?" "To Sam's ship." Foyle thrust his big hand before Gisbella's eyes. A bunch of radiant keys lay in his palm. "I took his keys. Come on." "He gave them to you?" "I took them off his body." "Ghoul!" She began to laugh. "Liar! Lecher! Tiger! Ghoul! The walking cancer! Gully Foyle!" Nevertheless, she followed him through the snowstorm to Montauk Light.